Okay, here's a thought. What if conflict, even war, could actually be a good thing? Now, I know that sounds pretty intense, but it's the core idea in a really fascinating argument from author Xiaoyang Lin. So let's break down his philosophy and see just where this radical idea takes us. And bam, right out of the gate, Lin hits us with this. It's a statement that's absolutely designed to make you stop in your tracks. But hold on, he's really quick to clarify he is not praising bloodshed or destruction. So, what on earth is he actually getting at? To really get what he's saying, we have to look past the obvious, beyond the battlefield, and into what the author, Xiaoyang Lin, calls the spirit of resistance. This is where we start to unpack an idea that kind of turns our whole understanding of peace and conflict completely on its head. See, for Xiaoyang Lin, a society with absolutely zero conflict isn't peaceful at all. It's basically a society of puppets. He argues that the real danger is what he calls a slavish peace. A place where nobody has the independent will to stand up and fight for what they believe in. For Lin, that spirit of resistance is the ultimate sign of a healthy, free-thinking society.
Now, this is key. To build his argument, Lin makes this really crucial distinction. He says, look, not all wars are created equal. He splits them into two completely different buckets, what he calls the King's War, which is all about obedience, and the duel-style war, which is fought from personal will. And for Lin, that difference, well, it's everything.
So, let's look at the first type. According to Xiaoyang Lin, a king's war is when soldiers are just tools, basically an extension of a ruler's own ambition. He points to these huge historical conquests, or even, in his view, the recent invasion of Ukraine. In these fights, Lin argues, the average soldier isn't even allowed to ask why. Their job is just to obey. And that kind of war, he says, is all about subjugation, never freedom.
But then, on the flip side, you have what Lin calls a duel-style war. And this is conflict that comes directly from an individual's own gut feelings and judgment. It's about defending your honor, your family, your home. The motivation here isn't some order from on high. It's a deeply personal drive to protect your own dignity and your right to exist.
Okay, so you might be wondering, how does all this individual conflict create a society? Wouldn't it just lead to total chaos? Well, for Xiaoyang Lin, this spirit of resistance doesn't just end in chaos. And here's the twist. He says it's the very foundation of order.
This brings us to Lin's whole theory on how societies evolve. He argues that, look, conflict between people is just the natural starting point. The default way to solve it? Violence. But violence is messy, it's costly, it's unstable. So to manage all that conflict in a more predictable way, we humans invented something brilliant: rules. And here is the big takeaway from Lin's perspective. Civilization isn't about getting rid of conflict, it's about managing it. A government or a king becomes legitimate not when they can beat everyone up, but when we all agree to a common set of rules for how we're going to compete and disagree with each other.
So, building on this whole idea of rules over rulers, Lin then turns his attention to what he sees as the single biggest obstacle to individual freedom today, and that's the government itself.
And to really frame his argument, author Xiaoyang Lin borrows a super famous line, this one from Ronald Reagan's first inaugural address. He uses it to start asking some tough questions about the role and the sheer size of the modern state. Lin really sees Reagan's words here as a critical warning. He argues that as governments get bigger and bigger to solve our problems, their very size and power can become a new, even bigger problem. For Lin, this just crushes the individual will and autonomy that he values so much. He believes power should always flow from the people up, not from some ruling class down.
And Lin has this simple but really powerful analogy to make his point. Think about it. We don't need a traffic king standing at every corner telling cars when to go. We have a system of rules, traffic lights, that pretty much automates the whole thing. So Lin asks, why can't the rest of society's rules work just like that, without a massive top-down government?
And all of this thinking leads directly to author Xiaoyang Lin's most ambitious, most futuristic idea, what he calls a completely new operating system for all of humanity.
So Lin basically charts out this clear historical path. He says we started in these forced communities under kings. Right now, we live with all these separate national operating systems, different laws for every country. He believes the next logical step is a single, unified human OS. So what is this human OS? Well, in Lin's vision, it's a universal set of simple, totally transparent rules built on timeless ideas of freedom. And get this, it wouldn't be managed by politicians, but by AI, to get rid of human corruption and all the bureaucracy. The legal code itself would be super simple. The only crime is messing with someone else's freedom. The ultimate goal, maximum individual liberty for everyone on the planet.
And that right there brings us to the final massive question at the very heart of Xiaoyang Lin's philosophy. It's a pretty radical vision for the future, one that asks us to rethink everything we think we know about power and conflict and freedom. Can a system of rules powered by pure logic and AI ever truly replace our need for rulers? That is definitely something to think about.